portion of the show is being brought to you by the moon. Yes, when looking for a celestial body to set off the little understood supernatural forces that turn them into horrible monsters, more werewolves choose the moon than any other satellite. Remember, it's round, it's yellow, it goes around the Earth every 28 1/4 days. It's the moon.
What grows in the forest? Trees? Sure. Know what else grows in the forest? Our imagination, our sense of wonder, and our family bonds grow too. Because when we disconnect from this and connect with this, we reconnect with each other and build family memories we will carry with us forever. The forest is closer than you think. Find a forest near you and start exploring at discovertheforest.org. It's easy. Just put in your zip code to find family-friendly outdoor destinations near you. You'll also find guides to free activities, games, and amazing forest facts. Give the magic of the outdoors to your kids and reconnect with your family. Find a forest near you at discovertheforest.org. That's discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Welcome to Lighting the Void.
All broadcasting live from a shack on a hill in the Mossy Creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. This is Lighting the Void, live on Fringe.fm, KTOK, Digital Broadcasting, and Facebook. We're back. Sorry, last night we had a meltdown with the fiber optics, but it allowed me to play with the software a little bit, so hopefully we can cut back on some... hell, I don't know, some cost. That's what I'm trying to do. So I'm able to broadcast this show from software without having to pay for a StreamYard, which is really cool. So that cuts out the bill, but we can still use your support. That cuts down that bill anyways. And this might be a freaking nightmare, but I've been working on it a little bit. trying to find free software to do all this stuff with. It's kind of fun because you get to be creative with it, right? The only problem is I can't seem to figure out how to get into the chat, which I'll probably figure that out at first break. So I got another email from my man Gareth. Before we get deeper into War in Heaven, I got another email from him. And then, like I said, I can see it pop up on the screen there, though, actually. So that's kind of cool. I don't know why it's so low. Let me see if I can raise it up some. There. It's supposed to hook up to all the different chat rooms. Whatever. I'll figure it all out. You know me. I take the shotgun approach, right? So last night I worked on this stuff. I listened to Escape the Simulation Radio by Jess Rogie, and I was just tuning in, and they had a listener who he listens to this show, and he listens to Jess' show. He frequents on Jess' show. His name's Sylvain, and I got a tarot reading from the cat, and it freaked me out. And it's been a long time since the only other person that's freaked me out with a tarot reading was Mary Ducina, honestly. So I want to make sure, if you're watching, my head's going to be going back and forth trying to make sure all the stuff is working right. Because I got two computers going. I've got a virtual mixer on both computers. I'm doing audio over IP to all of them. So it's fun. So we'll see how it goes. But anyways, Gareth emailed me, and he is staying in touch. I hope you guys, at least some of you guys are emailing him. And this, I'm not going to say what he told me because, dude, you do not have to go do that. But if you want to, go do it. Just send some pictures, please. But I want to get some guests on the show. I'm trying to get guests on the show to talk to them. And, to try to help move this along. And a lot of listeners have talked about some good guests like Thomas Campbell. We tried to get William Bielman on, but he's in the middle of a book right now. And I really do think those guys are the two closest ones to what's really going on here. But I will say that I had no idea that Diana Pasulka was on Joe Rogan. Someone told me that the other day. And I really do believe in this like collective consciousness thing because right out of the bat, like right out of the gate, he sent me an email asking me, and I'll answer you, buddy, what you asked me. But it's just cool to see that like Joe Rogan right out of the gate asked all the same questions and thought all the same stuff that we did. Right? Like, some people would, if they had an ego, they'd say, oh, he's farming my show and all this other stuff. But that's not what's going on, man. There's like a collective conscious, we're all connected, so we're all thinking the same stuff. So he jumped right out of the gate and he asked her, he said, I think that this UFO stuff is stuff that happens in like hypnagogia and things like that, right? And in sleep. And she went into talking about that, and they talked about some of the same stuff. But the biggest thing that I got from it, because Gareth asked me, what did Diana Pasulka say about what happens after we die? And I don't think that she said much. And I I took the time to listen to that show. I mean, this woman is like, it's super intelligent, man. She's super intelligent. She's adorable. She's kind of like a super intelligent, adorable, the guy that's like Tom Hanks that plays in that movie Demons or Angels, doing that kind of thing, right? And you could tell she was stoked to be on Rogan's show. But anyways, I listened to that show. I listened to the show we did. She's been on a ton of shows. That's another thing, too. Like, she's really cool. She'll go on just about anybody's show to talk about what she's doing and spreading the message. And so I listened to both very intently. And from what I understand is that, one, based on her research, she doesn't talk much about like what happens after we die, even though she does study religion and stuff. But she does say that we're all connected consciously, like collectively and consciously. And two, that the people that have, and this is what she said on our broadcast here, she said, the people that have character are the ones that get rewarded the most with mystical experiences. And I forgot how we got to that, honestly, because it was a long, drawn-out discussion about how we got to that. So we're going to, other than that, she didn't really mention anything like what happens after we die or the out-of-body experience or anything like that. What's up, Jane? What's up, Jess? Word Salad. I can see you there. Lucas Williams, what's up, man? All right. So I don't know if I'm even on Facebook. I don't know. Like, I know I'm on YouTube. So, and I know I'm on the radio station. So, what's up, you fringers? I see you over there still listening. So these radio people are pretty damn radio-ish. They don't move from it, right? So we're going to get back into this. You guys should go check out Jess's show and listen to that reading, though. It really did freak me out. Like, I was on, I mean, I don't want to spoil it for you, but like, he literally named 4 exact things that I just got through doing. I didn't say a damn thing to him. Maybe one thing he could have intuitively figured out if he was like listening to this broadcast or figuring out what we were doing over here or whatever, but I highly doubt it. All right, so I apologize about last night. The fiber optics really did go out. We had to get up early in the morning, wait for the guy to get here and hook it back up. We had no internet, so. All right, so we're back in this book, War in Heaven. This guy's going to be talking about gods. And you can call in anytime, too. And you might want to, because the only way that I could see the chat until I figure out how to get in there is like what's popping up on the screen and stuff. If you want to chime in. So, all right. So how do the gods differ from elementals? The elementals episode was pretty damn freaky, wasn't it? I thought it was. I thought it was pretty freaky. So he asked the spirit in this book, he says, how do the gods differ from the elementals? And the spirit answers and says to him, he says, on the structural level, a god is simply an adult elemental. That's all gods, by the way. And that's what this guy's saying. Not some of the gods, not the pagan gods. Everybody that's ever called themselves God is just simply an adult elemental, is what the spirit's saying. Make sure I feel like this lid's about to pop off. That'd just be my luck. It just blast coffee all over the place. All right. So he says on a structural level, God is simply an adult elemental, a huge colony of astral souls that live in deep space and absorbs the astral energy radiated by certain stars. The desire for a composite entity is programmed into the astral temple of every human soul. And this is a major reason why so many living people desire wealth, fame, political power, and other symbols of having control over others that simulate being the guiding force of a composite entity. And wouldn't you think that that's heavier now? Like, this guy wrote this before there was even influencers on the internet. Now that's real heavy. The ambitious earthly politician, the aspiring despot, the man who would be king, is just acting, behaving in the physical world as his astral soul is programmed to behave in the afterlife. Disembodied astral souls do the same thing when they become theocrats, and readers have asked why theocratic spirits would want to remain on the astral plane indefinitely if they must feed on other human souls. And this is the answer. Almost every human culture has produced some version of the saying, a man is a god in embryo. And it's true. However, the astral template also can program the soul to act as a sovereign individual, which is why there are free spirits as well as theocrats. The extension of this influence to living people creates the desire for freedom and individuality on earth as well. He didn't mention if that's an ego thing at all, though, did he? So I wonder what Andrew Tate's like in the astral realm, right? That guy? You think he's got some kind of crazy astral entity up there? So the extension of this influence is to living people creates the desire for freedom and individuality on earth as well. So then he asked the spirit, he says, the dichotomy, or this dichotomy, is a partial answer to the age-old problem of evil. problem of evil. He has that highlighted. I might check out what he's got there. However, you are implying that both the desire for individuality and the desire to form a composite entity are just natural biological drives, too fundamental to be judged by terms like good and evil. This is why human beings, the Spirit says, have a characteristic similar to neoteny. I got to look that up, man. I don't know what that means. It's probably my redneck vocabulary, but I'm tired of saying a word. I don't know what it means. Am I even saying it right? Neoteny, Neotny, also called juvenilization, is the delaying or slowing of the physiological or somatic development of an organism, typically an animal. Okay. Neoteny. Is that how you pronounce it? Oh, man. So humans have a characteristic similar to neoteny. We do that. Elementals are the adult form, but without a truly intelligent composite soul, they are more like animals than people. Gods are also, what's up, Genevieve? Okay, the Facebook chat's working. Gods are also the adult form, but have a highly developed composite mind. The civilizations you call space people are made up of individuals that reject the adult form. A long time ago, the people on a particular planet developed sufficient technology to allow them to flee into deep space before adult elementals developed and depopulated their world. After the elementals had matured and departed, the people returned to their planet, whose biosphere was badly damaged, and lived in space colonies circling the world. By the time the planet again became fit for human habitation, they had no desire to return. They had become fully adjusted to life and their self-created environment, and their knowledge and technology had reached an extremely high level. Since the population of their space colonies was low, now we're talking about gods here, remember, not elementals. Since the population of their space colonies was low, they were able to prevent the cycle of theocracy from reestablishing itself. But their society eventually found itself threatened with extinction through sheer stagnation. After a certain number of incarnations in a stable, perfect society, people became suicidal. What? That doesn't even make sense. Why would they become suicidal? Since the population of their space colonies was low, they were able to prevent the cycle of theocracy from me. So when things get perfect, people just get so bored they want to kill themselves? Is that what this thing is saying? That doesn't make any sense. Call bullshit on that, sorry. Large numbers volunteered to be teleported as disembodied spirits to faraway planets in order to create life or guide the evolution of existing life towards the development of intelligence. New souls replaced those who departed on suicidal missions of creation, but this didn't stop the overall stagnation of the culture. The generations who underwent their evolution in a civilized environment with little real challenge became suicidal through boredom even more quickly than those who had evolved struggling to survive. Eventually, they tried to figure out a way to balance life between danger and security, to create a dynamic cycle that would allow advanced human cultures to survive indefinitely. They forced some of their people to recolonize their planet under the most primitive of conditions. This sounds like the inky stuff too, doesn't it? Letting the natural evolution of human society occur here. They allowed the advance of technology to cause a population explosion and didn't interfere when elementals started to develop. However, they manipulated the development of the planet's civilization much as we are doing on Earth today. Their purpose was to interfere with the natural human life cycle in a way that would allow sovereign individual humans to live in peace with elementals, so that both could realize their full potential and eliminate the negative aspects of the individual composite dichotomy. The result was the creation of the first true gods. When the planetary population reached the saturation point and a mass die-off of souls at a low stage of spiritual development allowed elementals to grow to maturity, the advanced civilization on the space colonies in the vicinity of the planet managed to tame or capture some of these vast spiritual creatures and tried to turn them into civilized people instead of wild animals. Elementals have the potential to be gods, but they don't realize it unless raised by their peers. Elementals don't have peers in the natural cycle of their evolution because they are the composite form of another race. We individual humans are their parents as well as their children, but we also have a destiny of our own which conflicts with theirs. This is why the space people interfere with this natural cycle of human evolution. They raise elementals to be fully human and civilized by teaching them to accept a symbiotic relationship with individual humans. Remember, an elemental is similar in structure to a theocratic band, and it has a place in its astral body for individual humans to attach to it. In a primitive animalistic elemental, these attachment points remain empty when the creature reaches maturity. And to produce a god, human astral souls attach themselves to these points as the elemental is growing and try to control it. Ew. If it overcomes them and remains an animal, then it may have to be killed. If the spirits win and tame the elemental, it becomes a god. This is not how I thought this was going to go, by the way. Like, I thought that he was just going to say, nope, they're fake. They're just all theocrats. I didn't know it was going to be human spirits attaching themselves to an elemental form for it to grow into a god. Maybe that's why it's called the Elohim, or the plural form. Let's see. As the gods travel through the universe, the Elohim who ride on them can visit planets and create life there, or guide the evolution of existing life, while having to die in the process as the original missionary spirits did. The god cannot approach the gravitational field of a planet very closely, but the Elohim can do so in return. Wait. Did he just start using that word, Elohim? Using psychic technology that the god creates within itself, another thing the Elohim do before they leave a planet is to create an elaborate and self-sustaining network of astral machines, which remain there for future use. And much of the Invisible College is doing on your planet right now, and what much of the Invisible College is doing on your planet right now makes use of such machines which were left on Earth's astral plane by the Elohim when one of the gods seeded your planet in the remote past. It might have been hundreds of thousands of years ago or millions of years. The devices are constructed of organic astral matter. They are machines, but they are also alive as planets are alive. This is why they were able to survive for unimaginable periods of time. The equipment is capable of defending itself from Theocrats and all, but the largest elementals, and of sustaining itself indefinitely. It possesses an artificial intelligence like a computer, but does not have true volition or creativity. Still sounds like a horror film, doesn't it? Is there anything that is like... You're welcome, JC. Thanks for coming out, brother. I used to have a neighbor named JC. Is there any good part of this story? Like... Does anything end well here? No wonder, man. Gareth, if you read this from front to back, I can see why. It repairs itself, but it does not reproduce or evolve. Okay, so we're just going to stop there just for a second. I don't remember saying Elohim, by the way, before. Like, I just started saying it, and then I read, and he started talking about Elohim. That was kind of weird. So, in a nutshell, he's saying that gods are just elementals that have human spirits that have attached themselves to it. Remember, according to this book, that's it. When we die, we have a choice. We can become a theocrat. We can die and take our chances with reincarnation. We can become a theocrat and manipulate the world, or we can join, I guess, the Invisible College and help out the world. What he's saying is some of these theocrats, they attach their souls to an elemental form, kind of like some kind of weird science experiment in the astral realm, I guess. And that elemental form becomes a god. Then he started saying Elohim. So, I think this is why we believe a lot of this stuff too. Again, I'm not saying it's wrong or right, but you can tell us, it's just like how Stephen King writes a novel. I think he told somebody this. He said, I start from the end and work backwards. But it's still fiction. I'm not saying this is fiction. But this would make sense why the Elohim call themselves Elohim. But there's probably 4 or 5 other stories you could walk back, and do the same thing with. All right. So he asks the spirit, he says, well, do the Elohim and gods return to a planet when it reaches the last days and new gods are about to be born? Do they leave? Most Earth mythologies kind of imply this, and the spirit says no, the gods normally visit a planet only once. After that, they can call to their children when they are ready. The Elohim can return to a planet using the same type of teleportation equipment that we use. I guess they have teleportation equipment. Many of the spirits in the Invisible College are in fact Elohim. I'm starting to get confused here. Now, this book is written by Kyle Griffith. It's called War in Heaven. So he asks the spirit again, he says, do the Elohim and gods return to a planet when it reaches the last days? And he said, well, I already answered that. So then he asked me again, he said, are Elohim and space people different races or the same? And the spirit says, this is a long one. We both belong to the same race or species in a genetic sense because our astral souls are capable of incarnating in the same types of bodies. There is not a single race of space people or a single race of Elohim, though there are actually several of each that we are in contact with. Your occult literature has used the word Elohim to refer to the beings we're talking about for many centuries, just as it has called space people angels. In general, the difference between the space people and the Elohim is simply that those who live in space value physical technology and life in a physical body more than the Elohim do. Space people normally incarnate immediately after death, though they can function quite well in the disembodied state if there is a reason to do so. The space people possess a high level of psychic technology, and much of it learned from their friends among the Elohim people. But they rely on it less to meet their total needs than they rely on physical technology. The Elohim have cultures that reverse the patterns described above. They incarnate in bodies only for a specialized reason, such as coming to Earth to assist with the birth of new gods. By choice, they spend most of their time in the disembodied state, traveling the universe with the gods, or living in the astral planes of advanced societies, like and unlike ours. Hey, man, that would kind of make sense. I don't know if it was in the Old Testament when I think it was like Abraham when he was talking to a lot of people couldn't figure out when he invited like God into his tent, and some people said, no, they were angels, or no, they were gods. No one really knows what they were. He just called them master or whatever. Could have been the Elohim just embodying themselves like one time. They, like the Elohim themselves, make more extensive use of machines constructed of living astral matter than we ordinary space people do. Another major difference between space people and the Elohim is equally difficult to describe. It has to do with group minds and the relationships between individuals within the society. The Elohim like to link their astral souls together using methods that are superficially similar to the way spirits are linked together in theocratic bands on Earth. M-band noise. This is crazy, right? Because Robert Monroe calls, what does he call it? M-band noise, right? When he gets when he leaves Earth, there's like all this crazy noise or whatever, and it's almost toxic in a form where other entities, he says, they don't want to touch him, and he calls it like M-band noise or something like that. Pretty crazy. However, the Elohim are more civilized, moral people, and would never control or exploit one another when they do this. Their group minds compare to theocratic bands as sexual intercourse between lovers compared to rape. Okay? We space people, on the other hand, do not link our souls together in this fashion except very briefly for specialized purposes, education, psychotherapy, etc. It should be pointed out that these differences between the cultures are matters of aesthetics, not morally or level of evolution. Both groups are good in the moral sense and highly advanced in the evolutionary sense. Yeah, that was weird. That was weird, right? The theocratic, so he says their group minds compare to theocratic bands as sexual intercourse between lovers compares to rape. That doesn't, like, my mind is just boggled right there, just to even say that. Lovers don't rape each other unless it's some kind of weird rape fantasy, number one. So do the theocratic bands come together, like, to, in a violent sense? Like, it's just weird, man. This dude's projecting into his story, I think. It should be pointed out that these differences between cultures are matters of aesthetics, not morality or level of evolution. Both groups are good in the moral sense. That still makes it more complicated. Anyways, of course, the cultural differences between the two groups often create political friction arising out of conflicting goals and values. But this can be beneficial and stimulating to both sides if handled correctly on the social level. Well, that kind of sounds like our politics. An individual can change from one group to the other, as a person on Earth might immigrate to another country and become naturalized. Whole societies have made this change in the past on the collective level and adopted a new technology and culture. And over the last 600 years, both space people and Elohim have been coming to Earth in ever-increasing numbers. Where are they? Many of your greatest minds were directed by astral souls from advanced extraterrestrial civilizations, and your whole modern Western civilization is the creation of our political organization on Earth, the Invisible College. We're going to have to track this, right? However, not all the space people on Earth are our agents. Theocracy is not confined only to primitive planets. Even advanced societies still have a minority of people with an insane lust for power and use planets like Earth as places of exile for them. After spending a few lifetimes here, either they will reject their theocratic tendencies and become rehabilitated by joining the Invisible College and assisting in the birth of new gods and an advanced human civilization on Earth, or else they will be devoured by elementals during the last days as the new gods are reaching maturity. So, isn't the line between, I could be wrong here, but isn't the line between the Invisible College and the Theocrats starting to get really, really thin? Like, really, really thin. Like, I can't even tell the difference now, honestly, in this story. So he asked this spirit, and he says, well, this confirms all these rumors I've heard about Earth being used by other worlds as a hospital or an insane asylum. But doesn't the presence here of people with theocratic mentalities and advanced extraterrestrial knowledge make survival and spiritual development more difficult for the native Earth people? How do you justify this ethically? So the spirit answers him and says, well, most of the memories are removed from the exiles' minds before they are sent here, so they don't have the same type of knowledge that our regular agents have. The majority of them have a vague feeling of being alien to earthly society, but very few possess conscious memories of life on other worlds, and they have no technical knowledge at all. However, they do possess high intelligence and control over their psychic powers, and these are essential functions of the astral mind that we don't have the right to tamper with. Next question. So science fiction writers often assume that advanced societies handle their crime problems by reprogramming people's minds to rehabilitate them. Why don't you do this to your criminals instead of sending them here? Great. So we're an exile planet for astral criminals. The spirit answers him and says, we do employ such methods, but only on less serious cases. Every advanced society that's tried to eliminate all crime and insanity from the population has ended up destroying itself. It's impossible to program destructive tendencies out of the mind without also eliminating good qualities like creativity. So exile is the lesser evil. And having a few extraterrestrial theocrats here doesn't affect the average Earth person at all. They're really no different from your own native theocrats, and there's no shortage of those. The presence of such people on Earth really has no overall effect on events here, especially since about half of the exiles eventually rehabilitate themselves and fight on our side. Okay, so he asked the spirit, he says, well, my personal psychic experiences and my past life memories tell me that the exiled criminals and the agents sent here to direct the war in heaven are only a small minority among the extraterrestrial spirits now incarnating on Earth. What kind of people are the rest? And the spirit says there are two main groups: refugees from physical wars and disasters, and secondly, young souls seeking development and the challenge of this in this hostile environment. Both come here to be at the beginning of a new civilization. He said, everything you just described sounds like what has happened on Earth during colonization of a new era. The American West was settled by exactly the same groups, a cadre of professionals who assisted the others, refugees fleeing poverty or oppression, young people seeking opportunity, and a minority of criminals running from the law. Australia is an even better example. It started as a penal colony and later attracted the other types of immigrants as well. And the spirit says, well, that's a very good analogy. And the presence of large numbers of typical colonist types here ought to make your readers feel better. The voluntary immigrants wouldn't come here unless they believed that their chances of surviving and prospering on Earth were reasonably good. So he asked the spirit, he said, well, just what are the risks? What are the best and worst things that can happen on this planet? And what is your prediction of what will actually happen? I'd like to know what the spirit's going to say into that too. So he says, on the positive side, psychic equipment for controlling the development of embryonic elementals into gods instead of all devouring monsters is functioning extremely well. It seems to be completely adequate for its job when the time canes. That's a typo. We also have plenty of spirits trained to operate the equipment and others to work with the embryonic gods, as well as Elohim to guide them home when they are ready to leave the planet. On the negative side, the Theocrats still have far more influence on Earth than we'd like. Considering your state of technological development, we're not worried about the eventual outcome of the battle with them. The Invisible College is going to win because we now have much better access to psychic technology than the Theocrats do. However, unless the control of theocratic spirits over your technology can be broken fairly soon, the Earth's biosphere will be seriously damaged before the last days. It's going to be a near thing. Each chapter gets scarier and scarier, doesn't it? Let's see. So he says, are you referring to things like the destruction of the ozone layer by organic halogen compounds? Like the greenhouse effect, etc. Of course, he's referring to that. The spirit says these are only two out of a long list of symptoms and not even the worst ones. For example, some of your medical researchers are becoming aware that insecticides and other poisonous chemicals cause mutations in bacteria and viruses that create new diseases, but they haven't realized just how great a potential danger this is. Over 50 million years ago, the dinosaurs became extinct because of diseases caused by chemical pollutants released by the impact of large numbers of comets with the Earth during a visit of the Sun's astronomical companion, the Nemesis star. So he says, okay, well, what happens if the Earth becomes uninhabitable after the majority of the population dies off during the last days and the new gods depart? And the spirit says, well, it may be possible to start an advanced civilization of reasonable size on space colonies, as has happened on many other worlds. This is the most probable outcome, the way things look right now. It's kind of funny, too, because we got people trying to go to Mars now, right? Reading Gods, the one, I don't know, it's PDF form, so it's the one after Elementals. And you got to make sure you got the book called War in Heaven, not The War in Heaven. It's War in Heaven by Kyle Griffith. There's another book called The War in Heaven, which isn't this book. However, if there is a large-scale nuclear or biological warfare, the last days may come so soon and be so short that this won't be possible. That's the worst-case scenario. And if it happens, we will simply have to evacuate as many souls as possible to other worlds, using the same psychic equipment that we use to control the elementals. Chris says, this spirit believes in dinosaurs? Oh, the game's up. You think dinosaurs are fake, brother? I'm not going to argue with him. Well, a lot of this stuff kind of like makes sense, right? If you think about it, all the way to the Elohim, to the what's he's talking about, the elementals, to the seeding of the planet, to what's happening now, the stuff that's happening behind the scenes. Like, I can see, I told you guys, as we got deeper into this book, I can see how once you start, I know you're joking, man. How you can put it all together and make a story out of it. But, I mean, there are some parallels, man, like to some astral travelers, too, of what he's saying. But I just don't know. Soul-sucking Theocrats. I don't think so. I don't think so. So anyways, he goes, well, that sounds better than the prospect of universal death that everyone on Earth would face if the extraterrestrial spirits weren't here. And he answers them. The spirit answers and says, it is, but it still isn't a good situation. Only astral souls above a certain state of development can be teleported out of here. Weaker souls would not survive the journey. That's kind of like the tribulation thing. Because now all of the agents and immigrants, and even the rehabilitated exiles, are strong enough to survive the journey out as they survive the journey in, but many Earth people aren't. This means that many ordinary Earth people will die under these conditions, but they will survive if this planet continues to support physical human life, or if it's possible to build space colonies just in time. He says, okay, well, knowing this, it's easy to see why you're pushing the New Age movement. Why, and what he's saying is it's easy to see why you, the Invisible College, is pushing the New Age movement and trying to push that along or manipulate it along. And the resurgence of occultism so hard. You want people to strengthen their astral souls through practicing psychic development techniques because that increases their chances of survival no matter what happens. He says, well, psychic development alone does not guarantee survival. Theocracy on Earth is now entering a fifth stage of development, which is based on electronic mind control instead of religious mind control, and on belief systems with no obvious ties to organized religion. Fifth stage theocracy can entrap living people into group entities similar to theocratic bands by linking their souls together with ties of astral matter. And people capable of entering the psychic trance are not as resistant to it as they are to the religious stages of theocracy. The next chapter will discuss the fifth stage of theocracy and some of the measures that the Invisible College is taking to combat it. I knew it. I was going to spill coffee on me. You mean it gets scarier than that? Boy. If you want to call in, you can at 501 777 5631. If you want to chime in on this, Chris. Mason Jar says, what does the astral look like? Similar Earth with different colors? There's a level, well, when I got out of body, there's, and Robert Monroe talks about this too, the place, there's different stages to it, but there is a place that looks just like this. I mean, more vivid than this, more real than this. And if you've ever taken acid, it has kind of like a hum to it too. It's crazy vivid. It's like an imprint of this place. And I believe you can affect the physical realm with it. In fact, I believe I did a couple of times. I don't think I've experimented with enough to know, but I'm pretty sure I did. Anyways, we got to take our first radio break. I appreciate you guys being patient with me and not being able to broadcast last night, but it turned out to be a good thing because it gave me extra time to use the software, so I don't have to use StreamYard to broadcast to different places. I can do it for free with this software, so that cuts that bill down, right? And we're doing all this to help Gareth, but I'm still saying, Gareth, brother, like, there's not even a 10% chance this is real. Like, it does, if you read it chapter by chapter, right? If you like stay in the moment the whole time you're reading it, it does kind of seem like it could be real, but you have to use reason and logic and do a little conscious exploration to see where you can see where this guy is projecting stuff into this story too. This is a fear-based story based on the unknown. How much astral traveling has this guy actually done? So he's getting all of his information from a spirit. You know, how much conscious exploration has he actually done? All of his information from a spirit that's coming from him, which is pretty much where we all get our religious texts from, which makes all of this kind of ironic, doesn't it? What's up, Marla? Says what I saw when I think I was in the in-between spaces looked like the Axis, bold as live album cover. Man, I've heard people say that they even seen, what's his name, emailed me, the alchemical cat that listens to the show. He emailed me and said he saw the grid or something. See, this is why I keep responding to you guys in the YouTube chat, and I'm telling you, you got to get on the show so you guys can share the stories with me, man. Be right back. Short break here.
I remember how it all started. Feeling warm, though the summer was over. And by the lights, they felt so big then. We're only riches, stars at night in the big black sky. And you said to me, if you love me, then say you love me, that you are mine. Hey, come on, darling, stop the hiding, speak your mind. Oh, I loved you, but you left me speechless.
No, not mainstream radio. I want to listen to The Fringe FM.
Have you ever wondered, what do the stars say for me? Or, will the next month or the next year be more favorable? How about, are our two signs compatible? Each month, at the new moon, you can ask these questions live with me, your astrologer psychic, Mary DeCina, along with host of Lighting the Void, Joe Root. Join us at the new moon for Cosmic Conditions. We look forward to working with your energy.
Every new moon at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on Fringe FM. The future of medicine is already here. Protect yourself and those around you from the effects of electromagnetic radiation and recharge your body with life energy. This is your chance to take control of your balance, your quality of life, and your future. The effects of syntropic products have been verified from a scientific point of view and can be backed up with research. This is future technology, a biotech enterprise with breakthrough technologies that facilitate the protection, regeneration, and recharging of both human and animal populations. These patented wellness devices can help optimize energy and performance, speed up regeneration, and protect you from the harmful effects of non-thermal e-smog. Get back to feeling your best with a new level of clarity, vitality, and balance with the advanced and effective products of Syntropics. It's as Albert Einstein said, the future is here, and future medicine will be the medicine of frequencies. Get started on your wellness journey by going to advancedwellnesstechnology.com or fringe.fm/bioenergy.
What grows in the forest? Trees? Sure. Know what else grows in the forest? Our imagination, our sense of wonder, and our family bonds grow too. Because when we disconnect from this and connect with this, we reconnect with each other and build family memories we will carry with us forever. The forest is closer than you think. Find a forest near you and start exploring at discovertheforest.org. It's easy. Just put in your zip code to find family-friendly outdoor destinations near you. You'll also find guides to free activities, games, and amazing forest facts. Give the magic of the outdoors to your kids and reconnect with your family. Find a forest near you at discovertheforest.org. That's discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Do you want to know the truth? Are UFOs real? Are aliens visiting Earth? Are governments around the world hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO Seekers, official partner of The Fringe FM, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Join us as we investigate locations like Area 51 by subscribing on YouTube at youtube.com/UFO Seekers.
Mises, two computers, do all this stuff, streaming audio and streaming video. I know you're tired of me bitching about it, but it is tricky. Like I grab one mouse and this one's not moving, you know. I'll figure it out. I'll get there, man. What do we got in the chat? Who's got a good camera, Joe? You can direct it and we can, yeah, like this is going to be a Netflix special soon, won't it? It'll definitely be a Netflix special, I think. Like coming down the road soon. How did this chat get moved over? How did this thing get screwed up? I think it will be. I think it'll be like, it'll probably be a Netflix special soon. Anyways, we can leave it like that, right? Don't need to see that on air sign. There we go. But no, it does. It sounds like that, man. It does. But I can tell you this for sure, man. Like, it's not related, but the reason why I'm in kind of a weird mood while I'm reading this is because it warmed up here to like 70 degrees. And so I got to go outside and do stuff, walk, you know, drove around, walked to exercise, had to, you know, got a little air. Man, the seasonal depression is a real thing. It's not bullshit. It's a real thing. Like, because I felt completely different today, which means I can't live anywhere cold. I can't. It's not going to happen. All right. So to sum this up, we know now what elementals are. They're like Cthulhu spirits with a bunch of egregoric stuff bunched up into it. And gods, according to this book, are individual souls that don't want to reincarnate. They're more theocratic, probably a bit more violent or a bit more selfish, have attached themselves to these elementals and grown themselves into this god form in the astral realm. And all of our gods, from Jehovah to Thoth, all of them, the pagan ones, you name it, are that, according to this thing. The book is called War in Heaven by Kyle Griffith, and we are broadcasting live on the Fringe FM. The call-in number is 501-777-5631 if you dare to chime into this. So what's next? The fifth stage of theocracy after the end times, right? It gets worse. It's worse, much worse. What the hell is that noise? I left the door open too. See, in the shack, I only have one light coming out the door. And it's not really like the picture where I have a garage door that can open up. I have like it's like a prison cell almost, right? So don't have a window. It's like the condo on the beach, except I have a little bitty door. If I open it up, stuff comes in every time. Just if I want to get fresh air, I open it up, stuff comes in, whether it's the damn chicken or crickets. What was it today? The neighbor's dog. I'm irritated about it. Let's get to the end times, after the end times, the even worse case scenario. Let's do that. This is starting to become a joke. It'll make you a better gamer. Will it? Okay. The fifth stage of theocracy. So he asked the spirit, he says, please begin by explaining what the fifth stage of theocracy is and how it differs from the other stages. And the spirit answers and says, well, the fifth stage of theocracy employs electronic mind control instead of religious mind control, which is probably what's happening now. And it can enslave the people who subscribe to the belief systems other than those of organized religion. The fifth stage Theocrats have much stronger psychic powers than ordinary Theocrats because they have access to psychic machines of the same type we use, and they are also able to control elementals to some extent. This allows them to control people sufficiently advanced in personal psychic development to resist ordinary religious mind control and to deceive people capable of recognizing the fourth stage. Organized religion is a tool to enslave and exploit human beings. Oh, Hound Dog says, do you think egregores and beings we experience via hallucinogens are symbols? I think they're a deep part of your psyche at the very least, and I do think that they're attached to the collective unconscious. I don't think they're necessarily what these things are called, but my psychedelic, I've done DMT, acid, and mushrooms. Not extensively enough to call myself a psychonaut, and have still yet to do ayahuasca. Until I have a real big ayahuasca experience, I don't think I'll ever be even remotely intelligent enough on that subject to talk about it. But I have an intuition, if that's what you want to know. That might sound like people that say that, right? Like, I have an intuition. Like, I don't want to let go of the idea of being right. So that's my intuition. No, I'm seriously do have an intuition about it, though. So, question this to the spirit. This seems to be another connection to the Shaver mystery. Nobody cares about the Shaver mystery. When Shaver mentions the Ray Mech of the Deros, he is referring to the psychic machines left in Earth's astral plane long ago by the Elohim. Oh, what's up, Barney? Hound Dog, that's who you are, okay. I find it extremely frightening that theocratic spirits have the access to this technology. Just how big a threat is it to your plans to liberate Earth from theocracy? Let go. Well, he said on a purely technical level, it's not a serious threat. The Elohim races who originally perfected the astral matter technology are allies of ours and enemies of theocracy. Their agents and our agents who have received training directly from them have much more complete knowledge of how to modify and use this equipment than any of the theocratic spirits have. So he says, when you say agents, do you mean living people or disembodied spirits? And he answers and says, the rumors that certain living people have advanced knowledge of psychic technology are untrue. Our disembodied spirits who have never incarnated on Earth can have this knowledge. It's far too complex a set of astral memories to survive the incarnation process. Living Earth people do make use of this technology, but they are analogous to the user of a computer system. It's like the 12th time he's used computer systems in here too, isn't it? Not to the technicians and system operators who actually run it. And the use of this equipment by the Theocrats and the living people who work for them is directly analogous to what computer hackers do on Earth. They have direct control of only a limited amount of software, but they use it to make unauthorized use of the whole system. It's like astral hackers now. Hold on just a second. So then this is definitely a matrix, right? So if we've got hackers in the astral realm, then this is a damn matrix, if he's right. He says, let's see. So he asks another question. He says, since I made the breakthrough, I've noticed that much of the literature on operational magic resembles manuals for using computer systems. For example, those lists of secret names and words of power seem directly analogous to passwords for accessing computer files and commands for instructing the system to perform specific functions. I also see a resemblance between magical languages like Enochian and computer languages. The same holds true of numerological and literological systems, and many magical spells and incantations have a structural similarity to computer programs. All right, I'm going to give him that one. All right, I'll give him that one because when you get into the language and stuff, and then you start like decoding the Bible and all this stuff with the Kabbalah and the numerical systems, and then you look how it all just goes down to numbers, and then you look at the power of numbers, and then you get into sacred geometry, and you start reading books like Lawler and big books. If you want to get into some cool stuff about sacred geometry, Robert Lawler is the man, right? You read those books, and then you start looking at the sigils and how they use, sigils and stuff, whether it's planetary, angelic, or the ones that correspond with the rose and all that. It does start looking a little matrixy, man. It does start looking like programs. Like your, C++ for the magical astral realm. And I'll be damned. Look, the Spirit says that's exactly what they are. All those books that tell people how to work magic by controlling demons or other spiritual entities are quite literally manuals for using psychic technology. Our code name for the network of psychic machines left here by the Elohim has always been the Black Network, which is the origin of the term black magic. It has nothing to do with morality, but it is strictly a technical term. So he says, back to the Spirit, he says, I think this is an unfortunate choice of terminology, as is your identification throughout history of the forces fighting theocracy with the devils of the various organized religions. Why do you do this? And the Spirit answers him and says, we already explained why we identify ourselves with the spiritual adversaries of the gods of theocratic religion. That's simply a matter of operational reality. We oppose the gods, therefore we are devils, no matter what terminology we use. The Theocrats would say that we are morally evil and encourage people to sin, so we might as well follow our own custom. Of course, people should compare what we do with what the Theocrats do and decide for themselves who is good and who is evil. It's all Satan. All of this whole book is the devil. Everything, it's all the devil. Just like my Magic the Gathering deck and my Dungeons and Dragons game. The devil. The use of the term black magic for psychic workings performed with the aid of psychic technology has a similar grounding in operational reality. The energies radiated by astral matter machines appear to be black in color when perceived with the psychic senses, whereas the energies radiated by human astral souls, including those of Theocrats, appear to be white or bright colored. This has a physical cause related to the frequency of the radiant astral energies themselves. The former appear absorptive and the latter reflective. All use of psychic technology radiates black energy, and all use of people's own psychic powers radiates white energy. And this has absolutely no relationship to whether these energies are being used for good or evil purposes. Theocratic propaganda long ago taught people to identify the concept of black magic with evil, because the Invisible College has always made more extensive use of it than the Theocrats. Hold up. So this book starts out saying the Theocrats are the bad guys, the monsters, the ones that are tricking us, that are creating gods and religions, and the Invisible College are kind of doing that too, but they're only doing it when we need it, and they're battling each other, and then later in the book you realize, okay, they're all creating gods and systems and schools. And now it's kind of reversing, right? So like the Invisible College is using more black magic and promoting more sin and is preaching free thought. So it's Satanism. And the Theocrats are trying to preach more orthodoxy. If I'm catching this right, more orthodoxy, more follow the rules, don't kick against the pricks kind of thing, so that when you do get there, they can trick you and suck your soul. I mean, this would scare the hell out of anybody, even Orthodox Christians. Like, if you really like dug into this, you wouldn't know. You're not going to know what to do. I think the answer lies in let go of the polarity. Let go. The fifth stage Theocrats work through organized religion, organized religion, but they are not tied to it as strongly as are theocrats using more primitive methods. They are capable of turning almost any group of people into a theocratic cult and any ideology into a theocratic doctrine. The spectacular corruption and exploitation of the People's Temple cult is an example of what they can do to a religious group. But the Symbionese Liberation Army affair, the kidnapping and conversion of Patty Hearst, is proof that they can work through a purely political group as well. Right now, they are trying to turn many rock groups and their inner circles of fans into theocratic cults, and they have also corrupted a number of occult and New Age groups, and this ties in with what we said earlier about living theocrats. The best example of how fifth stage theocracy operates and how we are fighting it involves subliminal warfare through the electronic media. This began in the 60s when many idealistic people in the counterculture tried to form a new religious system to replace Judeo-Christianity. On the overt level, their attempts produced the New Age movement and the present revival of traditional occultism. But the process has had an even more important effect on Western society on a subliminal level. A high percentage of the imaginative novels, movies, and television programs produced in the last 20 years contain hidden messages about the war between the Theocrats and the Invisible College, and popular music today is an even more effective tool for mind control than it was in the 60s. As soon as we started this subliminal warfare, the fifth stage Theocrats began using it too, and both sides have been fighting desperately for control in this area all during the last 20 years. You know, whenever you guys start talking about conspiracy, right, with your friends or whatever, like when you have that conversation, let's say you're having that conversation or you're a cokehead or a speedhead, and those conversations, you're out on the town, you're doing all that stuff, those conversations always lead to deep discussions about God and theocracy and they and them. Remember this book, because when people say, who's they and them, like no one ever has the answer. This guy has the answer to who they and them are. I'm not saying it's real, but you could always throw this book at them because it's like giving exact answers for that. See. Question. I very quickly noticed the magnitude of this warfare when I started doing research for a book on the role of popular music in the war in heaven. Many of today's rock songs tell the same story over and over again. It's like reading passages from the diary of someone gradually going mad in an old horror novel. Every new rock group starts out with a few normal protest or love songs. Then they get swallowed up by a group mind controlled by fifth stage theocrats, and from that point on, all their songs sound as if they were written by the same person. However, this theocratic subversion is often not complete, and periodically one of the groups still writes a song about the fight to liberate the human race from mind control. A number of musicians who are also highly skilled magicians have set out to train and control some spiritual beings that they believe are young gods that can eventually oust all theocrats and invisible college spirits from the astral plane, leaving them in control of this brainwashed spirit and thereby the rest of the world. Word Salad says, it's interesting how we got rock and roll around the same time we got nuclear tech. Furthermore, they all believe that they will somehow merge with this creature and become gods themselves, exactly how gods become with the elementals, right? Imagine if all this stuff was really real. Oh, dude, I see the word homunculus down there, Juan. I hope Juan's listening to this or will eventually. We're about to get to the homunculus. I'm wondering if there's any conspiracy shows out there who actually found this book and decided to do 800 shows based upon its writings. Because you could. Let's see. He says to the spirit, this sounds identical to what you said in the last chapter about the Elohim and the birth of new gods, yet you seem to be taking a negative attitude towards it here. And the spirit tells him, he says, the actual situation is extremely complicated. Some of the people in this movement are working with Elohim, and their efforts will allow the elementals they are training to become gods. Such people are themselves Elohim in training. However, the majority of people who are involved with this are actually working with theocratic spirits who lack both the morality and the technical knowledge to raise their elementals as true gods. Why would you even say that word, true gods? That's kind of like, there's so much stuff that doesn't make sense about this. He says these elementals will cause a great deal of harm during the last days, and they will almost certainly devour all spirits and living people linked to them. These false gods are controlled through astral matter machines belonging to theocratic spirits. Some of these machines can generate immense quantities of psychic powers and allow magicians to do spectacular acts of magic, which convince them that they are truly on the way to becoming gods. But this is just another deception. They are merely on the way to becoming theocrats by imitating their methods and morals. The theocrats treat the embryonic gods as domestic animals and use them for their own selfish purposes, just as they use other human spirits, living people, and psychic machines. The theocrats are able to deceive many people who study the higher levels of Western occultism because many famous magicians of the past are now theocrats. I wonder which ones turned theocrat. I can take a wild guess at a couple. Some in the Golden Dawn for sure. But the main OTO guy probably. Who knows, man? That's if this is true. It's snot. The best example of this deception is in the medieval alchemical mythology about the homunculus, which was later picked up by the Golden Dawn and the Crowleyites as the magical child theory. One element in this theory is the idea that properly trained human magicians can control gods or other spiritual beings much more powerful than they are if they know the proper spells and secret names. Anyone who applies this concept and tries to gain control over theocratic spirits, elementals, or units of the astral psychotechnology is entering on very dangerous ground. The theocrats are quite willing to let magicians think they are controlling them and will assist them in working all manner of magic using their various passwords. However, the more the magicians use the system, the more mental reprogramming signals the theocrats send back along the linkages being used. The reprogramming affects both the astral mind and the physical mind, and there's a grim irony in the phrase, "you yourself are the instrument." And anyone who collaborates with theocratic spirits to do magical working is putting his or her own astral and physical mind directly into the reprogramming circuitry. Like, imagine that, just arc. Well, so this is funny too, because Liam Christopher just put out a video about the difference between invocation and evocation. And the Golden Dawn taught a system called God forms, right? Where you invoke angels, gods, things like that into your being. You don't try to control them. That's the last thing you want to do. But you still invoke them into your circle, which is basically saying you're invoking them into yourself. And if you want to evoke a bad spirit, right, you evoke it outside the circle to observe it, to talk to it, to get control of it or whatever. You can't, I would go listen to his video. I might link to it about that. I personally, just so you know, have never, not that I'm aware of, invoked any gods, right, into my system. But who's to say we all haven't when we pray, right? Like this is getting pretty trippy if it's real, right? Real, it's not real. Tell me it's not real. So he asked the spirit, he says, the medieval literature on alchemy and ceremonial magic is full of protective spells and charms that magicians are supposed to use to protect themselves from being affected or taken over by the gods, demons, or other spiritual beings they are supposedly enslaving to work for them. Are you saying that none of these protections work? He says, no, not if the magician is in contact with the theocratic spirits And the closely related concept the magicians cannot be affected by the entities they contact to work black magic if they are pure in heart is equally false. The Theocrats don't care if people are virtuous or not. Their mind control linkages will corrupt magicians slowly but surely. There are many living magicians walking around right now who think exactly like theocratic spirits. They think they are gods. They think they are immortal. They think they have the right to control other people and disembodied spiritual beings to do their bidding, and they drain psychic energy freely from others like psychic vampires. Another mythological element the Theocrats use to deceive traditional Western magicians is the concept that the Atman, or higher self of a human being, is itself a god, and that if an organized group of magicians merges their higher selves, they can collectively create and control a new god capable of becoming a major force in the world of the living and taking on an equal status with existing gods. This whole mythos is based on the desire for power over the intelligent beings, which of course is one of the principal causes of theocracy. From our point of view, the entire mythology is completely false. Wait a minute. He said from our point of view. You're supposed to be like a spirit that knows you're in the invisible college. You're a spirit in the invisible college. You know the truth, right? So now you're saying from our point of view, this entire mythology is completely false. It is based on a number of false assumptions about spiritual reality that you have already thoroughly debunked in this book. The key fallacy that underlies everything else concerns the so-called higher self. He's given himself away. Like, this is the thing about bullshit artists too. Like, this book is like really entertaining and it's stimulating to the mind, right? Like it just is so stimulating to read. I can make a Netflix special out of it. But there are times in here when he gives himself away, like he just slips up. He should just quit doing that. It would make it more frightening if he would just quit doing that. It exists, of course, but it's no more godlike than the lower self. The higher self is nothing more than the astral soul with its astral mind and psychic powers. Becoming a magician is nothing more than putting the physical mind in conscious contact with the astral mind and using the psychic powers in the astral soul. That is correct, sir. The medieval alchemists and Kabbalists developed excellent practical techniques for doing this, but their theoretical explanations of how it worked were completely wrong. So he says, how does the information you just gave relate to my experiences with modern rock music? For example, I sometimes seem to hear messages with my name in them. Joe. You guys, is he right about that? Do you guys hear messages in rock music with your name in it? Like you hear that? Is this how people get entrapped into theocratic electronic mind control networks? And what exactly are the messages? Actual subliminals in the music itself, or telepathic messages that use the music as a focusing device for my own psychic powers? And damn, this is a long answer. I have to take one more break too. Let's see. Do we? Yeah, I got to play that other one. This form of electronic mind control is extremely powerful, and much more is expressed in electronic signals than an analysis of the surface message indicates. Modern rock music is not just a melody and a lyric with a few specific subliminals added in such a way that they can be easily extracted. If it were, then computer scientists on Earth could put songs in digital form, separate out the subliminals that had particular effects on people's minds, and actually write a sort of computer language out of them that could be used for simple kinds of mind control. For this reason, both the Invisible College and the Theocrats deliberately keep the subliminals far too complex to be analyzed and cracked with present Earth computer technology. Well, that was a very good explanation. Don't assume that the voices you hear on record speaking your name or various other word patterns that you think are personal and unique to you are proof that some living person or some disembodied spirit has the same verbal knowledge that you yourself possess. This simply isn't true. The mental programs that human beings use to deal with language involve a lot of what you would call computer enhancement of images and also high-level computer languages. The actual subliminal sounds mixed into recorded music and broadcasts on radio and television are more like a computer machine language than either on an ordinary spoken earth language or a high-level computer language that resembles such a spoken language. They're not words or even, phonemes in English, but patterns of sounds that produce certain reactions within the speech interpretation programs in the listener's mind. For example, when you think you hear your name being called, the signal is probably not your name as an earth person at all, your name where you came from, but a descriptive term in machine language that refers to a specific type of person. It's comparable to sending a narrowband radio signal on a certain frequency. If anyone is tuned to exactly that frequency, he'll hear a signal. And some of the Theocrats and many spirits in the invisible college know what kind of people are here doing various jobs. Well, why don't you name some names, brother? Like, why don't you tell us who they are instead of just, I know they're doing this. These certain Golden Dawn magicians did this. These certain rock stars. Like, tell us who they are. Then perhaps I'll go research it myself and believe this. Some of the Theocrats and many spirits in the invisible college know what kind of people are here doing various jobs. I just read that. If they want to communicate with such people, they send a group of machine language symbols that a mind of one exact type will receive and no other. If you are that type, you will hear your name being called, or will otherwise be aware that someone has a message for you. What you don't seem to be aware of is that only you or someone exactly like you can hear the signal if it is specific enough. And some of these call codes are more specific than others, and some can be heard by conscious extraterrestrial agents, others by all extraterrestrials, period, and some by everyone with a certain degree of psychic development. And many of these subliminal messages have the same effect on the human mind, which on one level is computer software, as programming commands sent into a computer. In other words, receipt of a group machine language symbols by your mind causes a particular program to start running. If you are in the correct state of consciousness, and if your mind possesses the program in the first place. Well, that's kind of how NLP works, too. And this is why the voices you hear in the music seem to be trying to recruit you to their side or to scare you off from interfering with their activities. Do not jump to the conclusion that the senders have conscious knowledge of who you are or what you are doing on the level of earth plane activity. They know that many different people are doing research into electronic mind control, and that among them are undoubtedly some conscious extraterrestrial agents with the correct mental programs to understand messages of the type you are now receiving from us. They also know how to send messages directly to you through music subliminals because they know some of the mental programming. You have to do your job. You have to do your job, or is it you have to do your job? Is you have to do your job. They are on your wavelength, or they know your language. So no matter who they are or which side they're on, they try to get you to join them or to keep you from interfering with them. Another thing you have to realize is that these messages that you can now receive because you have the right programs loaded into your mind are not new. Many different groups of spirits and living magicians have been sending such messages for years. That hasn't changed. It is you who have changed. You can now hear and see the messages, whereas a few months or years ago you couldn't. What you are receiving is quite real, but it isn't quite what you think it is either. You think that the messages are much more specific than they are. You think they are aimed at you as a unique individual. They aren't. They are aimed at a type of person doing a certain type of job and possessing certain kinds of mental software. And then he says, well, you still haven't told me how to distinguish subliminal sounds put into music itself on the physical level from telepathic messages sent to people when they listen to music. And speaking of which, we have the short end of the stick break for tonight. I'm going to send you some mental telepathy right now. Mental music telepathy. I'm here to control your mind. We'll be right back. We'll answer that stuff too.
With music marketing and promotion. They have no idea how to get their music heard, and they're spending hours sending emails, making phone calls, and hitting up their friends to promote them. With our industry-powered digital marketing platform, we can set up your media plan in minutes. Our team will automatically distribute your music across all the best channels, so you can focus on actually making the music. Submit your music today on our website at mymusicpromoter.com. That's mymusicpromoter.com.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out, and for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Have you ever wondered, what do the stars say for me? Or, will the next month or the next year be more favorable? How about, are our two signs compatible? Each month, at the new moon, you can ask these questions live with me, your astrologer psychic, Mary DeCina, along with host of Lighting the Void, Joe Root. Join us at the new moon for Cosmic Conditions. We look forward to working with your energy.
Every new moon at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on Fringe FM. The future of medicine is already here. Protect yourself and those around you from the effects of electromagnetic radiation and recharge your body with life energy. This is your chance to take control of your balance, your quality of life, and your future. The effects of syntropic products have been verified from a scientific point of view and can be backed up with research. This is future technology, a biotech enterprise with breakthrough technologies that facilitate the protection, regeneration, and recharging of both human and animal populations. These patented wellness devices can help optimize energy and performance, speed up regeneration, and protect you from the harmful effects of non-thermal e-smog. Get back to feeling your best with a new level of clarity, vitality, and balance with the advanced and effective products of Syntropics. It's as Albert Einstein said, the future is here, and future medicine will be the medicine of frequencies. Get started on your wellness journey by going to advancedwellnesstechnology.com or fringe.fm/bioenergy.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing technical difficulties. Please do not adjust your radio.
I'm 54, so basically, it's too late to start saving for retirement, right?
Not right. Starting to save, even in your 50s, can really make a difference.
Well, right now, saving seems hard to wrap my head around. Plus, with the way this year's been going...
Hey, listen, it's okay. You still got this. Just go to aceyourretirement.org. It's an online tool from AARP that can help you get your retirement savings on track no matter your age. It's free and only takes about 3 minutes.
I like 3 minutes.
Yeah, at aceyourretirement.org, you'll chat with Avo, the friendly digital retirement coach. Just answer a few questions and you'll get a personalized plan and tips to help boost your retirement savings. Tips that are easy to understand and tailored to your lifestyle.
I like that too.
Plus, it's sponsored by AARP, so you know they got your back. Just head to aceyourretirement.org and make your plan to start saving for retirement.
Thanks.
That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
You're listening to KTLK Digital Broadcasting, The Fringe FM.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
This track be fitting, right? All right, so welcome back to Lighting the Void Radio. We're live on Fringe FM, KTLK Digital Broadcasting. Please, for the love of God, keep donating. For those that have, thank you. I have no way of monetizing YouTube, Facebook, or any of this other stuff. So if you go to fringe.fm, there's a donations tab there. $1, $3, $5, $10, whatever you can do. We desperately need it to keep going. Because the reason why I'm pushing it so hard is because it's been months since we've been out of the red, right? So to be out of the red means that we can create more. And the latest donations did pay off the website, and would love to get the app back going too, but not going to breakneck here either, though. So if you ain't got it, just spread the word if you like the show. And if you don't like the show, hell, spread the word about that too. Forever. All right. Creepy ass song. I thought it fitting, right? So Genevieve says, see, in my worldview, there is only one cause. Maybe we call it God, but it is source energy, no personality. Chris Martinez says the Rosicrucian ultimate goal is to become conscious in one's ability to astral project in order to be an invisible helper, one with the invisible brothers. I am curious where the connection is. Yeah, there's a lot of teachings about it, right? Make that documentary. I can't make a documentary on my own. I've had people hit me up talking about making an out-of-body documentary, but all I do is I email back. I'm like, I have no money to pay you to do this. So it's all going to we have to do it together, and it's all going to depend on what comes in the end. And we can write stuff on paper because this is a lot of work. It's a lot of work just doing a YouTube video like this, much less documentaries. But I think if somebody took this story, and I'll be damned, I bet you will see it too. And instead of creating an entire podcast based on this with 3,000 episodes, just did a Netflix series, like 4 or 5 seasons, one after the other. Millions of dollars. You know it. You know I'm right. Right. Okay. He still hasn't named, you guys have named more artists than this guy has. Like, I've asked you, who do you think's, what magicians do you think he's talking about? What rock groups do you think he's talking about? Other than the Beatles, I think he mentions the Beatles in here, and that's about it. Let's see. I'm going to leave off. Okay, yeah, here we go. You still haven't told how to distinguish subliminal sounds put into the music itself on the physical level from telepathic messages sent to people when they listen to the music. And he says, well, a few modern records contain subliminal messages in ordinary English, but these aren't really important. They are usually quite crude and easy to spot and are little different from the ones you are familiar with from the 60s, like the Turn Me On, Dead Man, back mask on that old Beatles record. The back masked sounds on many rock records have a much simpler explanation than you presently think. First of all, the vast majority of them are not put there for any deliberate effect, but just to make the sound richer and more complex. Modern recording energies have a whole library of natural and artificial sounds available to them when they work, and they have it all labeled by various nomenclature systems of their own. If they want a particular effect on a particular record, they usually know approximately what kind of item in their library is appropriate. Then, they listen to samples and pick one that seems right and insert it into the mix, but they almost never know what that sound was originally, nor do they care. The recording they hear is already backwards or otherwise mechanically distorted. It's not meaningful to them except for whether or not it fits the sound criteria they need for the job at hand. Now, when you use your own sound mixing equipment to distort the sound until it becomes meaningful and you can recognize its origin, you are usually doing something that people who mix the record did not even do themselves. The information you obtain by doing this is not a secret message sent by them. The whole process is as fruitless as taking a book that is being used to prop a window open and reading the contents to try to find out why the window was opened or who opened it. The important subliminals in modern rock music are nothing as easily identifiable as English words. Some of them are machine language symbols that evoke particular words or phrases. When you receive these, you may think you are hearing words and sound, but an oscilloscope would not register the same pattern as it would from the same words actually spoken. I think that's another typo. I should say the same pattern as it would from the same words, not saying. In other words, you could hear the same group of words from two completely dissimilar oscillate patterns of sound. Some of these machine language groups are so basic and so powerful that a person who spoke a language like Chinese would still hear words with about the same meaning. However, most of them would not even get through to another speaker of English unless the person also had the correct mental programming. This is giving me a headache. Another thing I'm wondering about, he asked the spirit, is raudive voices. That's spelled, am I saying that right? Raudive voices. Raudive. Named for a psychic researcher who postulated that disembodied spirits could impress their voices onto magnetic record tape. I have received a large number of messages of this type during my music research. Are they really put there by spirits who psychokinetically manipulate the molecules on the tape? Or is this another explanation? The spirit tells him, the messages are not on the tapes, but in your mind. What actually happens is that spirits perceive the pattern of static going onto the tape and key to it to a telepathic message they're sending into your subconscious. You can consciously retrieve the messages when you listen to the tape. The proof is that sometimes more than one person will hear the same message on a particular tape, sometimes not. And also, if you listen to such tapes frequently, you can learn to retrieve the message without it. Both the IC, or Invisible College, and the Theocrats use this method of communication frequently, on music tapes as well as tapes containing only static. So, there's no clear line between, like, the two, the Invisible College and the Theocrats still. He's just batting for the Invisible College in here. I'm not taking sides either. I'm just saying it gets all jumbled up in this book. So he asks the spirit, or he says, the scope and effectiveness of the electronic mind control techniques you have just described give the fifth stage Theocrats much more power to control people than the religious Theocrats have ever had. However, Western civilization still seems to be evolving towards the goals set by the Invisible College long ago. An increase in individual sovereignty in all aspects of human life, a decrease of bigotry and closed-mindedness, a higher level of general knowledge and sophistication in both technological and social areas. Do you guys agree with that? Do you think over time that we've become more sophisticated? We have more knowledge. We've decreased our bigotry and our closed-mindedness. I would say so if you look at history. I assume that this is why you remain... Did y'all hear that? What the hell was that? Y'all probably aren't hearing that. I assume that this is why you remain optimistic about the future, but nevertheless, many of the people who commented on spiritual revolution expressed serious doubts about the future of the human race on Earth. They believe that nuclear war, biological warfare, or destruction of Earth's biosphere through pollution will prevent an advanced civilization from developing on this planet, no matter what the Invisible College is able to do. Well, the Spirit says we are still optimistic, but these fears are quite rational and deserve to be discussed in more detail. Our war with the Theocrats over the centuries have always involved battles over the evolution of physical technology, as well as the programming of individual mental software and the design of social institutions. And during the last few decades, this technology war has become one of the most important aspects of the whole struggle. We've already described two major aspects of this technological warfare in some detail: mind-altering drugs and the electronic media. The next chapter will discuss other aspects that are just as important, but are not as easy to identify because they don't involve direct mind control. They are factors that operate behind the scenes, but they are going to play a principal part in determining the ultimate destiny of civilization on this planet. If the Invisible College retains control of these factors, Earth will eventually take its place among the advanced human civilizations. If the Theocrats get control of them, then the physical planet Earth is doomed, and those of its inhabitants who survive will do only as refugees in other worlds. Damn. That's the end of the fifth stage of theocracy. Well, there are books about the Invisible College. There are lots of, I see Word Salad says, you think the Invisible College is similar to the Hidden Hand. I have no idea. I mean, I've read stuff about the Invisible College, all from good things, right? I'm sure like Chris Martinez would agree. But look, I honestly think that this guy that's talking to himself is talking to, you can say it's a spirit or himself or whatever, has read just as many books, believes he's on the side of the Invisible College, but has uncovered the fact that, well, if the bad guys are doing it, so are the good guys. Like, he's probably dug deep enough. Is this guy still alive? You know what I mean? Like, why don't we just get this dude on the show? I got to get a hold of John or somebody. We got to get a hold of it. Figure out if this guy is still walking around who wrote this book. Get him on the show. I haven't even, to be honest with you, I haven't even done a damn YouTube search to see if this guy, because this whole thing hasn't been about this book. It's been about Gareth. Because, you know, he was reading books because he's coming to the end stages of his life, and he stumbled upon this book. And I got to tell you, man, I knew this was going to happen. Like, getting into this book, this is one of the worst books you could read if you're coming to the end stages of your life, I think. Not saying, I mean, not that it's a bad book, but to try to find truth, I think it is, you know. The only way we're going to know is through conscious exploration and love, man. Is it. Anyways, this is my little bitty 2 cents in there. Hidden Hand is way more articulate, Jane said. I had that thought too. Oh, you think Led Zeppelin, huh? Led Zeppelin's one of the people that are doing it. Trying to create a theocratic God. They probably did. They sold a lot of albums. All right, so how much time we got left? We got like 10 minutes here. The last show of the week. I might do another show because we didn't do one last night. I'll figure out if Alex is broadcasting tomorrow, or maybe do one this weekend. I think I have to do a podcast, guest podcast Sunday, but you know, I kind of want to play around with this too still, so I might do like another, I don't know, maybe even off the station show. I don't know. We're coming pretty close to the end of this book, I think. God, I would hope. So chapter 25, I guess we can start a little bit of it. The technology war. I wouldn't call in on this show either. We're also getting closer to Cosmic Conditions. That's coming up with Mary Decina. I do plan on getting some guests on. I'm just trying to figure out where my mind is and what questions I want to answer before I start trying to drag in more guests. And I think Solaris Blue Raven, I should be on her show soon too. All right. So we asked the spirit, what are the technological factors that you consider decisive in determining the outcome of the war between the Theocrats and the Invisible College? In other words, what's the biggest factor? What's the trigger? He says, well, the first of these involves biological technology, starting with the development of birth control pills for females in the early 60s. It's obvious that the pill and other methods of birth control, such as condoms and IUDs, have been important to the sexual revolution. But I don't understand why you consider birth control technology as important as LSD or electronic mind control. And the spirit says, well, we're talking only about the pill here, not about birth control methods in general. Birth control pills that prevent ovulation by increasing the level of female hormones in the bloodstream to stimulate early pregnancy have very important spiritual side effects on the women who take them. Increased estrogen levels stimulate the production of astral energy in the physical body. We mentioned this in Chapter 10 during our discussion of the reincarnation process. Occultists have known throughout history that women find it much easier to gain a certain amount of control over their psychic powers than men do. And the fluctuations of the estrogen level during the menstrual cycle are one of the two physiological factors responsible for this. The other is that the majority of women have to learn conscious control over their sexual responses in order to have a full orgasm. Since the Kundalini energy generated during sexual activity simultaneously generates psychic energy, when women learn to control their sexual responses consciously, they are automatically learning to control their psychic senses and powers as well. Well, I think that works for dudes too. I mean, he's speaking as if, men can't do the same thing. This is why women have traditionally been regarded as naturally more psychic and magically gifted than men. They actually are, and for physiological reasons. Of course, men can deliberately study sex magic and also learn to control both their sexual responses and accompanying psychic responses. But the process is less likely to happen to them spontaneously. And because learning the basic skills of sex magic is extremely important to psychic and spiritual development, such studies have traditionally been an important part of advanced occult training in both the East and West. Of course, the Theocrats don't like people to gain conscious control over their psychic powers, because this makes them harder to manipulate by subconscious telepathy. So when the Theocrats invented more sophisticated religions to replace primitive shamanism, they included the concepts of patriarchy and male dominance and the doctrines of almost every one of them. Most of the third stage theocratic religions excluded women from social and political power, but not from being priestesses or magicians. One very common theme in ancient Greek and Roman literature was women's use of their psychic powers to combat sexism on both the personal and political level. The Theocrats felt that if women were using their psychic abilities to fight against men, it would distract them from discovering and fighting theocratic mind control. So the whole fight against men thing was a red herring, huh? Even more important, these negative uses of magic would eventually give conscious psychic training and practice a bad reputation. So the Theocrats would find it easier to discourage them completely. And this is exactly what happened when the fourth stage, theocratic religions, were introduced. First, women were excluded from all the priestly functions that would teach them conscious control over their psychic powers, and quite naturally they invented various forms of women's religions and continued to learn magic in secret. Then, the Theocrats encouraged man to persecute such women for practicing witchcraft and sorcery. This didn't entirely eliminate women's religion, no matter how many times it's been beaten down. It has always risen again because it's a natural way for women to fight back against sexism, but it did allow the Theocrats to greatly curtail the conscious working of magic within the fourth-stage religions. The more male priests persecuted women for practicing telepathy, mediumship, divination, psychic healing, etc., the more fearful the priests became about learning these forbidden skills themselves. Eventually, men who wanted to become conscious psychics or magicians could no longer do it by joining the clergy of the society's official religion. Instead, they were forced to join occult organizations that were persecuted just as much as the women's religious groups were. This is an excellent example of the subtlety and sophistication of fourth-stage theocratic religion. Women's religion has always been present in Western society as a limiting force on patriarchy and male-dominated theocratic religion, but it has usually been practiced on an entirely subliminal level. Until the last few decades, many women have practiced women's religion, but few have been willing to talk about it openly. The men had control of the armies, the governments, the schools, the businesses, and the churches, and for many centuries, the only possible resource against this overwhelming show of force was passive resistance. Girls were taught by their mothers and other female relatives to develop their psychic powers in secret and to use them, along with more overt forms of sexual and emotional manipulation for controlling men on an intimate personal level. How dare you? We believe this passive resistance to sexism was ethically justified, as similar resistance among slaves and prisoners is justified. But it wasn't actually healthy for women to have done this. As the Invisible College has brought Western civilization to higher levels during the last couple of centuries, we have encouraged the formation of overt feminist movements. These are much more healthy than passive clandestine resistance because women are finally fighting directly for the right to assume equal status with men in both privilege and responsibility. So he says, how does this tie in with what you said earlier about birth control pills being one of the most important weapons in the war in heaven? Yeah, exactly. He kind of went all the way around that, didn't he? He says, well, the main reason we encourage the widespread use of female birth control pills has nothing to do with contraception as an aid in gaining sexual equality. As you pointed out, the pill is just one contraceptive among many and probably not even the best. However, women who take birth control pills over long periods of time find it much easier to become highly skilled magicians than women who don't. Yeah, because of the estrogen. You said that already, right? So there's much more to this than just increasing the slight superiority women have over men in psychic sensitivity and the ability to learn sex magic without formal training. When we described electronic mind control in Chapter 14, we mentioned that living people are capable of establishing threads, he puts that in quotes, of astral matter connecting their souls together. These linkages can be extremely important tools for personal spiritual development and the working of operational magic, and it is much easier for women to form and control them than it is for men. At certain points during the normal menstrual cycle, and especially during early pregnancy, a woman's somatic soul prepares itself to accept an astral soul for early reincarnation. A side effect of the process facilitates the formation of astral matter links within the souls of other people. This is a factor in human pair bonding, and it also allows some women to function spontaneously as high-level magicians with very little conscious knowledge or training. Now, you should easily see why birth control pills that simulate early pregnancy are an important factor in the fight against theocracy. Well, shit, now. Watch what happens after we read this. All the women are going to be just chugging those things, aren't you? 2 glasses of water and extra birth control. Of course, preparing women physiologically so they can develop their psychic powers more easily is just the first step. We also encourage them to be sexually active so they will start spontaneously learning sex magic. And then we provide opportunities for more formal training in the Aquarian Age occult and religious groups. It's only on this third level that men get actively involved by consciously learning sex magic. Is this starting to seem a little, because you remember when I read in the first part of this book that this guy's like, I had this weird feeling this guy had a sex addiction. He's promoting this stuff kind of like Crowley did. By what Crowley did by telling them how magnificently, magically wonderful the woman is and how much he worshipped it. And then after he had sex with him, they were his concubines. You ever see that? So it's kind of, if you really pay attention to what Crowley does, he does kind of the same thing. So all of the, he worships, like he builds temples around this female energy and then empowers the female, which I think is great, right? Empowers the female, talks about love, all that stuff. And the second he sleeps with them, now there's concubines, or he starts writing grotesque shit about them. Y'all be careful of this stuff, man. Here's the thing I'll say about this, okay? When it comes to never take advice when it comes to the heart. We all have like sexual urges. And when you get older, when I was younger, who wants to talk about all that stuff? But as I've gotten older, you could throw whatever at me. And if I don't, it's not going to, I've seen it, So like, there's a power in being able to, it's not really about control, But when it comes to the heart, you can't tell anybody what to do. You just can't. And I think if you follow your heart in this area, you'll be fine. Okay? Yeah, he's got sexual hangups and mommy issues, it seems like, doesn't it? Like, yeah, woman power. Yeah, but it's the same damn thing with all of these groups, it seems like. I'm really more partial to, like, if I study this stuff, if you look into the Eastern methods of it, they speak more about the heart than a lot of Western stuff does, in my opinion. All right. So one proof that this sexual revolution is vital importance. Shit, we got to end this. Is of vital importance to the outcome of the war in heaven is that the Theocrats have taken some extremely drastic measures to counter it, such as the creation of AIDS. Well, I kind of thought nature did that. So I've had an intuitive feeling that AIDS was an artificial disease ever since I first heard of it. Did the Theocrats create it by telepathically instructing the scientists in some secret germ warfare laboratory? And he says no. They used psychokinetic genetic manipulation to alter a relatively harmless African venereal disease virus into the HIV about 20 years ago. Damn it. Look, YouTube, this is this guy's book. The Fringe FM has no affiliation. This show, Joe Roop, Lighting the Void, this is only for research purposes. It's not to influence anybody. And YouTube, remember that this guy believes that there are invisible wars deep behind the scenes above everything. They're blobbing each other out. So before you cancel this video because I'm saying this stuff, remember, take it all into context. All right, we're going to get out of here. I'm going to leave it off right there. I'll probably finish this weekend at some point. I'm not going to promise you that, but I might. I want to stream again this weekend to try to work some of this stuff out. But, yeah, I think Word Salad, you got this book you could probably read on, right? Might do a little gaming, too. Who knows? We got to get out of here, though, man. Thanks for joining us. It was awesome. It was fun. I love these discussions, whether true or false. It's always fun exploring stuff consciously. You guys, when I leave the links out there, reach out to Gareth, say hi to him, tell him you're thinking of him, man. Like, remember, this whole thing started, and I'm going to keep saying it, from a man who's facing the ultimate void, the ultimate unknown, the ultimate voidwalker, right? He's our hero and wanted us to check this book out for him. We love you, brother, and I love you guys. Sweet dreams. Night-night. Actually, it's night-night, sweet dreams. Damn, I wanted to talk about a dream I had too, but I can't. See you guys later. We'll do it again.
My light, kiss me.